Hi guys, so over the next sort of few weeks and months, here and there, I'm going to invite some of the youth team to come and share their stories with you. Really so you can get to know them better, get to know who they are, how they came to faith, etc, etc. But I thought I'd start with me. So in today's video, I'm going to share a little bit about my story, not my whole life story, because let's be honest, I'm old and it would take forever. But just sort of like some broad strokes about who I am, where I'm from, why I became a Christian, why I am the youth leader here at St Mary's, so you can get to know me better. So yeah, I'll begin. So I was born in Dublin, Ireland. I might sound English, but I am in fact very proudly Irish. I lived there with my mum, my dad, and my big sister Carla. And then when I was a toddler, we moved to the north of Ireland, where my younger brother Adam was born. And we weren't a religious family, we didn't have a faith. My parents grew up Irish Catholic, which was very common for anyone born in the south of Ireland. And I went to a Catholic girls' school where I was absolutely terrified of the nuns, even though my mum says to me that they were the nicest nuns she ever met. But yeah, we weren't a family with faith at all. But my dad, while we were living in Northern Ireland, came to faith in quite an extraordinary way. That's a story for another time. So some of my earliest memories of sort of Christianity, church faith involved us driving from Northern Ireland in our car across to get the ferry over to England, driving a flipping long way to get to a Christian camp in Peterborough every summer. And it was like a holiday for me. There was lots of kids there my age. I just remember it being a lot of fun. I don't remember much about the Christian side of it, but I remember enjoying it. But then just before my 6th birthday, things took a big turn for us as a family. During that time in Northern Ireland, there was a lot of unrest and terrorism. My dad worked for a company that was a construction company, and they attracted a lot of attention from one of the terrorist groups. Sadly, a few of my dad's colleagues were actually killed, and they targeted my dad as well. And it got to the point where basically the police turned up at my parents' house and told them they basically had to leave the country for my dad's own safety. So with very little notice, my parents packed up all that we had and we moved to England. I didn't really understand what was going on. I remember being really devastated by moving. I loved where we lived. Obviously all my friends were there, my school was there. And we moved to this little village outside the town called Hampton, which is about an hour up the M1. And, I settled in pretty quickly into school. I was quite an outgoing child, social child, so fit in pretty quickly. And I think as kids, you kind of adapt quite quickly to these things, don't you? And it was when we were living in England, finally, that we started going to church each week on a Sunday. We began by going to like a little sleepy Anglican church in the village sort of near us. But it was a really echoey stone church, and my brother and I were very loud, hyperactive children, so it just really stressed my mum out trying to keep us quiet during church. And so we then moved to a church in the nearest town to us called Wellingborough, and it was a much more lively, many more families in the church. I remember it being a relatively nice church, and particularly as a child of primary school age, I enjoyed going. I enjoyed hanging out with my friends. And we continued to go to those Christian camps every summer, and I just remember riding my bike with a bunch of other kids, kind of playing from sun up to sundown with them. So yeah, kind of happy memories, I guess. One thing I do remember about those conferences though is my brother, who, as I said, was really hyperactive. He would if you gave him like anything with food colourings or E numbers or sugar in it, so like, biscuits, sweets, ice cream, he would go nuts, like wildly hyperactive. He would get really aggressive. He had a really strong reaction to it. And I remember my mum basically kind of at her wit's end, prayed for him, and overnight he was healed, or in that moment he was healed, in fact. And mum gave him ice cream and all sorts at holiday, and he was just a completely different child. And I remember that being a really early memory for me of kind of Christianity and of God. And yeah, we had a pretty comfortable life growing up. Money was pretty tight at first, particularly those first few years when I was in primary school and we had just moved to the country. lots of hand-me-downs. Didn't always have what we wanted, but we definitely always had what we needed. I know my mum said she could make an Irish stew stretch 4 or 5 days. And I know now that my parents said that several times they didn't have money for bills or for their mortgage, but they would pray and like an invoice would get paid by a client just in time. Or one time mum says there was a bill that needed paying and someone posted the exact amount for that bill through our door, and they're able to pay it, which is amazing. So there's kind of these little stories of God looking out for us as a family as we grew up. And increasingly my dad got involved in church more and more. He's kind of naturally a leader. So when I was like in year 6 or year 7, he took over the leadership of the church, running his own business. He travelled a lot. He was working really hard to support us as a family. But when he took over the running of the church as well, it was like he's working 2 jobs. So he'd work all day long, often commuting into London or travelling a lot. And then he would come home, get changed and go straight back out again to a church meeting or go to see a family in the church or a person in the church. And we also kind of had this open house policy. People could come around whenever they wanted, day or night. We also had kind of informally adopted some people who had difficult family situations. And, that is a great thing. But I think for me as a teenage girl, my older sister got on really well with my dad. They were really close. They didn't really have much conflict, whereas me and my dad clashed a lot with parts of us that are very similar. And I think also I just really resented the fact that he didn't spend enough time with me. I just got this message that basically, I kind of thought, yeah, okay, dad loves me, but he doesn't like me enough to want to be with me and hang out with me. So I really resented him for that. I really resented church for that, taking up his time. And I resented others who took up his time too. And I think like a lot of teenagers trying to figure out who I was at that time, what I enjoyed, what I wanted to do with my life. And I really, as a young teenage girl, struggled with my self-esteem. People wouldn't have known that. I think I've always presented pretty confident and outgoing and gregarious and extroverted. But actually, I really struggled with how I looked and how people perceived me. And I looked a lot for affirmation from other people, be they my friends or boyfriends or whatever. And I became less and less interested in church. Partly fueled by this resentment I felt towards it, but also I didn't have any Christian friends at school. We had a small youth group at church, but no one was particularly interested in God. Everything we talked about just seemed completely irrelevant to my life. And God I thought God was real. I thought they were pretty distant and uninterested in me. And so therefore I was uninterested in them. But there is one thing I remember actually a bit in my late teens, just before I left home for uni. I basically, throughout my teenage years, and even as a child, I used to get these nightmares about men coming to our house to attack us. It's obviously a hang-up from my early childhood in Northern Ireland, and later on hearing stories about that. So I used to have these kind of really horrible nightmares about people coming to our house and me needing to protect my brother, particularly. And I remember about 17, I just had enough. And I remember just praying once, and saying, like, God, please, like, take these away. Amen. Like super short, super quick. But I never ever had those nightmares again. I've never ever since, and that's about 20 years ago now, had those dreams. So yeah, at 18 I moved to uni in London. I studied dance at Middlesex Uni, and I had a great time. I absolutely loved my course. I was really good at it. I made some great friends, had a lot of fun. I had a really nice boyfriend. Life was like going great. And occasionally I would think about God, think about faith, but really, I just tell myself I don't need God, and I certainly didn't need church, and so I wasn't going anywhere near it. But as my second year of uni wasn't so good, like I was still doing really well at uni, throwing myself into it, but really I was quite miserable. I'd broken up with my boyfriend, and I just really felt like actually when I was in my room in my house alone, I felt really desperately lonely and sad. I worked Saturdays and Sundays. I worked in a shop. That's my kids. Oi, be quiet. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I worked in a shop weekends, so I couldn't go to church, which was convenient for me because I really didn't want to go there. But I kind of felt this nagging feeling that there was more to life than what I was currently experiencing. And I never denied God existed. I'd seen too much. My brother kind of being healed as a young child, God answered my prayer about my nightmares. Like I'd seen too much to deny that God was real, but I still just didn't want to go anywhere near a church building. I just thought from my experience that church was really restrictive, that people who went there were really hypocritical, really judgmental. They would say one thing but do another. I didn't think I would fit in or be accepted, and I wasn't sure I even wanted to be. So I graduated uni. I had been left pretty devastated by a breakup with the guy that basically I'd been in love with since I was 12 years old and thought I was going to marry. And we broke up, and I was really depressed. And I went to New York for 3 months to study dance, which was amazing fun. You know, I absolutely love that city. I have such freedom to do what I wanted to do, great parties. Yeah, just it felt like anything could happen. But while I was out there, I began to think about God again and faith. And my sister worked for a guy called Pete Greig, and he had written this book called God on Mute, which she told me about, which was it's a book about unanswered prayer, and about suffering and why God doesn't always heal people and stuff like that. And I remember being really intrigued, because I was like, wait, I thought I was always taught that basically you pray and it happens. If you're a good enough Christian, then all things will work out. And so I found this book, the idea of this book, really intriguing. And so I got a copy and I started to read it, and I honestly couldn't put it down. I found it absolutely fascinating. So while I was out there, in New York, I decided to try church again. So I found this little vineyard church in Brooklyn, which was in a bar. And people were really friendly, but really I just came in, sat at the back, stayed for the service and left again. That is exactly what I needed at the time. I needed to be anonymous. I needed to be able to just come and go as I pleased. But as I came back from New York after 3 months, I moved back to London as soon as I could, moved in with a couple of friends from uni. And I asked my sister to recommend a church, and she recommended. That was my alarm on my phone going off to check my COVID test, which is negative. Hooray! Anyway, enough of that. Where was I? Yeah, I just come back to New York. I moved back to London with friends. I asked my sister to recommend a church, and she recommended St Mary's, because at the time it was full of creatives, so full of like other dancers and actors and musicians, and it had a real reputation for kind of welcoming everyone and being really non-judgmental and grace-filled. And so I mentioned it to my housemate, who decided she wanted to come too. So on the first Sunday we came together, she was so nervous about coming to church. She'd kind of grown up in church and had a bad experience. So I kind of pretended that I was full of confidence and fine going, but I was also really nervous. I was totally bricking it. But on the surface, pretending I was fine, and came in, and John, our vicar, preached that first Sunday, and he preached the gospel about how Christianity is not a religion but a relationship, that it's not about what we do to earn God's love, but about what God did on the cross to show his love for us, and about like what they did to bring us back into relationship with them. And I remember just feeling like I wanted to stand up and shout, I knew it, because it was like John had confirmed all these suspicions that I had but had never really experienced myself. You know, that God was actually kind and loving and wanted a relationship, that it wasn't about behaving a certain way or acting a certain way or ticking boxes, but about being in a relationship with God. And because my personality is sort of all in or all out, I was suddenly all in. So I would come every single Sunday along with my housemate. I did the life course, which was sort of the course we do here for people who want to explore faith for themselves. I then joined the staff team because they advertised a job as a receptionist that first Sunday I was there. So within a month I was on team. And really it just made St Mary's my home, made some amazing friendships in those first few months. People who now live, like one lives in Kigali, one lives in LA, they live all around the world, but they're still dear friends of mine. And I just found here a place to discover faith for myself, to develop a personal relationship with God, to invite the Holy Spirit to meet with me for the first time in a way that was explained to me, that felt normal and safe. And I, through that, really experienced God's love for the first time, like a real demonstrable love for me. And kind of receiving that love, I felt like God also take away lots of the pain and sadness I'd felt, a lot of the shame and like the issues of low self-esteem that I had been carrying for many years by that point. After a little while, I got baptized. Like I felt like actually I really am all in, and I haven't got it all figured out yet, and I will never get it right completely, but I want to say, like, I'm all in, God. Like, I believe in you and I want to follow you, Jesus. So I got baptized, and over the years I have done various roles on staff team: receptionist, like running events, running the services upstairs, bit of graphic design here and there. But I've never, I always knew basically I was in the right place. I just knew I wasn't always doing the right role. And then a few years back, after I had my first daughter, Aoife, I got asked whether I would consider leading the youth for a while. Initially covering for a colleague of mine who had gone to have a baby as well. And I just felt like, yeah, I think I'd like that. And I'd worked with young people a little bit before through my dad's church. Like, after I came back to faith, I would go back and volunteer for a community project that him and the church ran. And so I felt a bit excited about it. But I can honestly say that I feel like all the years I've been at St Mary's and all that I've learnt, this is the job and the role that I've always been meant to do. I absolutely love it. Like, I'm getting a bit teary and that's a bit dramatic, but I find it so satisfying, fulfilling and enjoyable working with you guys. And I think it's really interesting when I reflect on my time as a teenager in church, like what it was versus what it could have been. I think that really shapes what I want youth to be here. Why I'm always like, do things on your own terms, explore things for yourself. When we pray in the power of the Holy Spirit, try and do that in a way where we do it as normally as possible. And again, you get to choose whether you want to do that or not. Wanting to discuss things that are actually relevant to your lives, and having a lot of fun, because that's really important, and making space to kind of build friendships with one another. All these things are really important to me because I know the effect of not having all of those things growing up, but I also know the benefit of having those then as a young adult in my 20s and into my 30s now. And I think in these recent years, some of my absolute favourite memories, the things that have really built and encouraged my faith, have been times that I've spent with you guys. I know I always talk about it, but our time, some of you at Soul Survivor, our time at Soul Survivor together, I think about that trip so much. We had such fun hanging out. I absolutely loved seeing God meet with you guys, God giving you guys words for each other, having some serious fun together, getting absolutely drenched in several water fights with you guys. And I cannot wait to do more of that stuff. I have loathed this past year of not really being able to hang out, not being able to do all these fun trips. But this summer we will squeeze in as much as we can. And then next summer I hope that things will be back to normal, so we can be able to go and be with other Christians your age, thousands of them. And I love the way you guys are unafraid to ask questions about faith and about God, about the Bible, the tough stuff, the real stuff. And I just want more of it, really. I'm really up for just doing more of that, and for you guys really shaping youth, and for me just to, I guess, facilitate that, help make that happen, but really follow your lead as much as you guys want. I want our time together to be real and to be relevant, and for you to be free to explore, and really for youth to be your space and not mine. So that's me. Obviously we'll get to know each other better and better, and when you see me you can ask me any questions about any of that. And then in the coming weeks and months we'll have other team members share their story. It'll be fun to hear from them. I hope you all have a great week. As always, if you want to reach out to me, anything I can pray for, anything the team can be praying for, you can DM on Instagram, St Mary's London Youth, or email me, lisa@stmarieslondon.com. Don't know why I had to sing that, but I did. Get in touch. And if you fancy grabbing a drink, going for a walk in a park after school one day, also let me know, because I'd love to do that. Take care of yourselves and have a great, great week.